This is Jane with Blog Talk Radio. This is part 2 of our episode on hydroxychloroquine, chloroquine, social stigma wearing masks, being out in public, mainstreaming the economy during a pandemic, and Ben will be joining us to share his personal story soon. Please listen to the second segment of this pandemic.
I've had a Prius, and my wife and I are talking about, going ahead and getting a Tesla, and just driving around, looking hard. But the bottom line is that we need to get this. Last week I said it. There are a lot of people who are running around happy as hell that this economy being torn up, because the system was made, as I said many times before, laissez-faire is a good system if it's run right. But it's run by a bunch of crooks and hypocrites and thieves, and this is not the way laissez-faire is supposed to work. If the stock market, for instance, was really real, wasn't artificial, but if it was really real, it wouldn't be anywhere near 23,000 right now. So, it would be right in the teens, 16, if there weren't people manipulating the LIBOR, interest rates, the Fed, all of these things are artificial. Our money is artificial. In all actuality, it's worthless. And one of these days soon, when we put this virus aside and people start coming out, we may have an inflation problem that rivals the 70s. So, we've got 70s and 80s. So we've got really to keep our eye on the prize or on what's going on, or else we're going to be in worse shape than we are today.
Well, that is a problem, because the Democratic Party wants to do another 2 or 3 months or even a year of this. Every $3 trillion, that's $10,000 of debt for each man, woman, child. And since half of us work, like 160 million out of 328, it means $20,000 for every worker, which means we're already 180,000 in the hole. If they do this for another 6 months or so, they're going to be anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 of debt. That's just debt.
And that's every person. That's man, woman, and child.
The only leader who's saying, let's open it up, let's get America going as quick as we can, is Donald Trump. And if you go,
but that's not necessarily a good thing, though, because we need to bring valuation down, John. Our valuation is through the roof. That's what, if you listen to the economists, that's what they've been telling. They've been telling you that these corporations, all of this money, wealth, the perception of being above everyone else, that is a false plateau. They're on a false ledge, and it's going to break, and they're going to fall. Whether this pandemic came or not.
Who's going to fall?
People, the economy, the government.
The crash.
It's going to fall because this stuff has been way overvalued, way out of whack. These companies are not worth what they are showing in financial systems or the stock market or whatever. You got to understand that the stock market is a mirror image of what the richest, I won't say 1%, because there are a lot of people who delve into the stock market on a daily basis. But because we have now, especially ETFs, where everybody has a finger in the market, whether it's 401ks or IRAs or whatever the case may be, there are tons of people who are actually involved in the stock market, whether they know it or not. So the players are the algorithm players and the big time players, the guys who, they don't gamble at the penny slots. They are in the high roller section. And so they're playing the stocks and they're manipulating the daily charts. Their money, one day they'll call up their friends and they'll say, okay, the internet chips stocks are going to have to take a hit. And then 2 days later, they're going to say, okay, internet gets all the money and the oil companies have to take the hit. And then 2 days later, they say, oh, now it's time for the pharmaceuticals to take a hit, and I'll send all their money to the chip stocks and the whoever I said second. It's just a game that these rich people play, and we got goofballs who are falling for this junk, and it's just artificial, and it's not real. And people don't have the faintest idea what's going on. And so that's why I say that in a way this is good about a readjustment period. Everybody knows it. Everybody's on the, they're on it. They took it as far as they could, and the small businessmen are the ones that are taking the hit. They're, us regular people, I'm making money because I don't spend a lot right now. I've gone 3 weeks without going to the gas station, for instance. Usually I have to fill up at least once a week. And I have a premium car. So, I'm not filling up when we were at the heights, $4.10 a gallon for me. But now, I'm quote unquote saving a ton of money by not driving, and gas is $2 less per gallon from this.
I drove by the sign the other day. There was one place in Minnesota. It was $1.38.
Well, I'm talking about premium now.
We have a caller. Ben's on the line, and I want to take a moment of silence. His grandfather died, and he has to go to the funeral tomorrow. So let's welcome Ben. Good evening, Ben.
Are we supposed to say hi, or are we supposed to do the silence thing now?
He's on the line, Don. Good evening, Ben.
Ben.
No, I wasn't even ready to say hi. I muted myself. Sorry.
Oh, well, I didn't have... Don, I'm muting you because you keep blabbing. Okay, Ben, I feel bad for what happened,
no, you
and
don't
secondly...
Need to mute anybody. We can
Okay, I was on the... I didn't have the screen up right that moment, so I don't know how long you've been on there.
I've just been listening. My phone's kind of dead anyway, so it was far away from me. When you said something to me, I had to walk over and get it.
Okay, well, first of all, you haven't been on the show for about 5 to 6 weeks. How are you doing in general?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Have you been working?
Well, I'm back on the clock. I guess that kind of... Technically, yes.
Good.
But I've had a lot of my days that were canceled because of all of this nonsense. So it's kind of like I've been on call and taking care of tying up loose ends everywhere. So it's like you think you have a plan for what you're going to do during the week, and then scheduling is all messed up. But it's going all right.
Okay.
What's up,
Don and John, do you want to say something to them?
Yeah, we're sorry to hear about your granddad. So
grandfather.
Grandfather.
That's okay. That's okay. I wasn't even going to bring it up on the show, but it's okay.
No, James brought it up.
Yeah, he was He was 89, so he had a beautiful life. I mean, there's too many things to even list about what he accomplished in his life. He was married for him and Grandma were going on 70 years. I mean, what more could you ask for out of a life? They have 30. Let's see. Between them two, so far, they have 34 people that they brought into the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like 4 kids, 15 grandkids, and 15 and one on the way, great grandkids. So I mean, I think he's pretty proud of his life. He's a Korean War vet, and but funerals are canceled in California, so it's kind of frustrating trying to get the honor that he deserves displayed at his funeral. That's right. I got a problem with that.
Yeah, in Minnesota, my relative's father died, and they had a funeral home visitation where they had 10 people come in for 30 minutes, and then the next bunch came in for 30 minutes, and everything was well organized. So are all funerals canceled in California?
Well, I don't mean funerals are canceled. I mean, there's probably only going to be a handful of people at his graveside, but the honor guard with the VFW and those kind of military funerals are canceled indefinitely.
Yeah, that's sad. And how long are you going to drive there or fly there?
I'm actually taking a train, and I'm kind of excited about it. I haven't been on a train in a long time.
Cool. Well, John, what do you have to say?
Have you gotten the figures on the train situation with COVID? I haven't heard anything about trains. That's interesting.
Well, I'll give you an update, but I'm pretty sure they're probably limiting passengers. It's probably going to be one person per car on the train. I don't think I'm going to have to sit by anybody. And I know I've been against this whole mask legislation thing because it's kind of like oral dictation from whoever your governor is. And I'm like, go screw yourself. You wear the mask. But basically, Amtrak's contract, in order for you to buy a ticket to ride on their train, you have to agree to wearing a freaking mask. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I guess I'm property. But I agreed to the stupid thing, so I guess if I want them to carry me to another state, I agreed to it.
In Minnesota and Wisconsin, you can't go in the Menards store without a mask. And some people won't go in there because of that.
That's really weird because the Surgeon General just came out and said basically that the mask stuff is hocus pocus.
Yeah, well, one of my bosses at my job said that there has to be a certain layer of something to shield you, and regular masks are not effective. But I forgot what material she mentioned.
Especially when people are just getting so used to wearing a mask around their neck. I mean...
That's what I do at work. Like, when no one's 6 feet away from me, I pull the mask down.
I mean, there's people out there criticizing other people for not having a mask, and they're wearing theirs improperly. It's just
like, I'm not going to finger point at people in the store, but in the part of the country I live in, 90% of the people are wearing masks in the store. And I even saw a young boy, like an 8-year-old, with a mask on tonight, with his mother.
It's not really... It's not really for your protection. It's more of a sign of your submission. That's how I see it.
Well, some people say by you wearing the mask, you're protecting those around you rather than yourself.
Yeah, some people say all kinds of stuff.
John, are you wearing a mask in the store?
We have to wear masks, and we had a guy freaking out last week. He was yelling at people like, your mask is too low, and he's like, and while I was working, I was about 30 or 40 feet away. Here's a couple registers away, and while I was bending over, helping the customer, my mask slipped a little below my nose. It does that all the time. You always have to keep adjusting it. And he yelled at, he's like, your mask isn't on, your mask is on. And so rather than argue with it, I just flipped it back up, high. And then while he's yelling, his mask slipped down below his mouth. So people are yelling like, cover your face, man. Shut up, stop yelling. You're getting us sick and all this. And he made a scene for like 10, 15 minutes. He's one of those, verbal streakers. He's just got to make a big scene for everyone. And it was, the point is, I tell people, do you feel safer now? You have your mask on? And they're like, well, sort of. I said, oh, well, then you can go back to work, like me. Like, in fact, one customer just sat there and said, aren't you going to spray the counter with chemicals? And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. I usually wipe it every once in a while, but to do it 5,000 times a day, every customer, it's just crazy. So I sprayed the thing a little heavy, like made it really wet and wiped the whole thing off. It's like soaking wet. I said, a couple months ago, people would have freaked out if there was chemical on the ramp for their food. They'd be like, oh my God, you got to wipe this off. I don't want chemicals on my food. And now, spray it everywhere. They're putting chemicals on their hands all day long. Sanitizer, spray, bleach, Clorox. No one seems to care about chemicals all over their skin anymore, their bodies. Think about that.
There was a clerk at the Dollar Tree in Minnesota who wasn't wearing a mask, but her coworker was, and she coughed right in front of me. And that kind of upset me.
I walked into Ralph's and I forgot mine. I had it in the car because I wear it all day. And then I'm walking around and halfway through I remember, I don't have my mask. I felt like a villain. I'm like hiding around corner. I'm grabbing cans as fast as I can. I'm putting them in, and I'm like I got to get. I'm looking at the security guard, so I'm angling myself. He can't see me. I go to the self checkout and I'm like, I got my head down. I'm just like ding, ding, ding. I got to get out of here before they catch me. I felt like a criminal. Like an outlaw.
And that's exactly how you're supposed to feel.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to mention when Ben was talking that I went in a couple places, I forgot my mask, and then I only went to one store one day, but the next day I wore my mask because it's a bigger relief just to wear it so nobody looks at you funny or questions you. So I find it easier to just wear my mask.
Social pressure. They've been planning this ever since last year. Social pressure works better than a mandate, but they're mandating anyway, and they're expecting social pressure to be the backup. So that's the first on the scene is a social pressure presence, and then the second on the scene would be if somebody actually told on you for not wearing your mask would be military or law enforcement, and it would be up to the officer whether or not he wants to break his oath to the Constitution to do something about it. But
I don't know what to say, but I'm an essential worker. I work with disabled people, so I don't have a problem wearing a mask because my coworkers expect me to when I go in the store.
Yeah, so social pressure. That's fine.
Yeah, but if I have nobody to answer to, like if I wasn't working right now, I might feel differently.
Well, what I'm going off of is the numbers have been fabricated for monetary gain. And I thought it was a right of mine to be able to work. Go and do labor and be paid for it. I assumed, even though I was being taxed heavily, I assumed it was a right that I had to be able to work. And now, the way that governors can arbitrarily tell their constituents who is essential and who's not, it lets me know that no, we don't have a right to work. We don't even own our own bodies. They're basically telling us who's essential and who's not to the government. So it's in their opinion who's essential and who's not. And what's funny is it kind of reminds me of slaves that had to wear masks, and it represented that slaves don't have an opinion. So you don't get to speak. You get to do work. We own you, and you wear the mask that covers your mouth so you don't have an opinion. And I'm surprised that very few people have caught on to this. And that's basically what this is.
Why do you think I keep talking about reparations? Doggone slaves have to see this.
It has nothing to do with reparations.
Oh, yes.
Who's going to pay me reparations for nowadays?
Black people throughout the history of this country have never had rights. Just like the indigenous. Native Americans they came and just killed up entire tribes. And they got, at least they got the reservation, but they gave African Americans, they gave them the ghettos. And a ghetto is a jail for Jews.
No, you keep going back into retrospect, and that wasn't you. This is stories that you've heard. This has nothing to do with you and your life or your freedoms or anything. You're going back into the history books. No, this has nothing to do with you.
Yes, it does.
No, you should be protesting somebody telling you to wear a mask.
Okay?
My grandparents weren't able to vote. They weren't able to read and write. They broke the law because they were professors. They were teachers, and they were breaking the law.
That has nothing to do with your life.
Sure it does. I wouldn't be who I am now, if it weren't for the fact that I had more or less at some point or another grandparents who broke the law, who were...
Well, okay, I want to stop this conversation a minute because this COVID virus that may or may attack people, it's not really color coordinated. Like, you could get it if you're in the wrong part of Reno, Nevada, just like I could get it if I'm in the wrong store in Duluth. It depends on how vulnerable your body is and what safety measures you take.
It really doesn't matter, though, when we're talking about legality and rights and what the Constitution doesn't give us our rights. It limits the government's power. And if they decide to just break all of the amendments because of a virus, they're saying that we own you, you citizen, you're in danger of traveling freely. So we're going to limit your travel. It's for your own safety because you are our investment. So you have to wear the mask everywhere you go. Otherwise, you just have to stay home. And that's wrong. That's breaking half of the amendments. They're actually breaking the Fourth Amendment by my governor signed he's putting in action a coalition of contact tracers that combines the National Guard, the private Department of Licensing, and the Health Department. So that means that we subvert the entire three branches of government and give the authority to a bureaucracy that was just created just for this virus. You guys see my point at all?
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, absolutely. There has been, there is a attempt by people like my boss, who want to vaccinate everyone, and they admit it. Like any other vaccination, you're putting the dead culture into your system in order to produce antibodies. And how that works, I don't know. All I know is that I have a question about some of the vaccines and their possibility of ADD and What is that?
Well, that's not the question. The question isn't what is the vaccine going to do to you. The question is, do you have the freedom to say no to the vaccine? How do you feel about it?
The answer, right now, the answer is yes.
You do have the freedom to say no?
Oh, hell yeah. I'm a black man. I have the freedom to say what the fuck I want. And the bottom line
what if your employer says you can't show up until you have your vaccine certificate? There's two.
There ain't hardly any black man in the world who gives a shit about his employers.
Your employer is Microsoft. It's Bill Gates. He's the vaccine
That's
king.
not true, Don.
There's a new generation, Jane, that's out of blacks who do kind of value a new persona or a different persona. You know, it's boring when you're at home on the porch all day, you know, sipping whiskey and smoking pot. It's a little different than when you don't have to answer to anyone.
Well, my black roommate makes $30 an hour at CenturyLink, and he does respect his employer.
I'm going to mute myself for a second.
And that's fine, because for the most part, that's what I'm talking about. He in times past, maybe $10 an hour as a janitor so that he can buy some Ripple was the way to go. You know, you don't even have to pay your rent. You just live in a back house or an alley or a garage or something. But those days are over because finally blacks have become have enough self-esteem to realize that we are worth it, that we are the kings of the world, kings and queens of the world, and that we need to get in lockstep so that we can take our rightful place in the world. So,
well, in America, you're only 13% of the population, so you can only dominate 13% of this discussion.
Let's all bow down to King Don, Don King, King Don. By the way, do you know my brother Slick goes to work at the corrections facilities, and before he starts the shift, he has to take a temperature test. He has to take this test before he starts his shift because they want to make sure no one is sick with a temperature or fever for the corona. And guess where they scan for this? On the forehead. They're conditioning us to scan on the forehead. Now, he declines when he says, you can scan my ear, but you're not going to scan my forehead because he doesn't like the mark of the beast. Now, here's another thing. There's two things out there. There's HRC 6666. 4 6s.
Hey, Don, mute yourself. I can hear your party.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Don, it's your family that's being loud.
And what that one talks about...
I know, but you have to be in a quiet room during the show, okay?
We are. I usually am. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
So HRC, which is not Hillary Rodham Clinton in this case, but HRC 6666 is basically, it talks about being able to go in and grab people that are quarantined, monitor them, track them, take the kid out of the house if they're sick, and they put them in wherever the government wants, with a safe environment for that person against their will. Now, also, Bill Gates applied for the currency chip patent, and that's a chip that can go on you, and you can make and do deals with it, money exchange, and it also can track you GPS-wise, and that is patent number 606060. Amazingly, 3 6s. How convenient. And this is the stuff that's coming out of this. Also, he has another chip that you could put in that can monitor your birth control. So a girl could say, I don't want to have kids this month, so she hits the chip, and then she activates it and sends it on if she wants to have children. Although a course, might have to have an accident where it just doesn't seem to work and she's sterile. I hate to have that happen from Bill Gates, but the point is we're conditioning people to use chips all the time in them.
There's sixes everywhere, John. I'm glad you pointed that out because I have a friend who's a teacher.
Thank you for listening to the second segment of our show. I will be posting the third later today.